Let me preface this video with saying I don't know anything. I don't know many of the fancy words that folks use. I'm just an everyday floaty circle that listens to claims and then goes, that sounds odd to me, and here's why. I'll get things wrong and amend where possible. Essentially, I make mistakes. But it seems apologists do too. And one of the more well-known ones points them out. Then I take what I've learned, and at the end of the video, I have a list of things that will definitely make apologists better. Maybe it'll even make everyone better. Hello, I'm the Skeptic. I watch videos on YouTube that make extraordinary claims, whether that's evolution is fake or atheism is wrong, but mostly the claim that a god is real, and then explain why I can't accept their position. Before we get into today's video, please do subscribe, hit that bell notification to be alerted for my next video, and drop a like. That would be fantastic. Capturing Christianity is a very vocal apologist. I see him on Twitter a lot, and I've seen a few of his videos. He hosts fellow apologists like William Lane Craig and Frank Turek, so I guess the company he keeps is interesting. Cameron has 12 mistakes that apologists make, and maybe if we can understand where they're going wrong, we can finally move forward to proving a god.
So I've made a lot of mistakes over the years.
Haven't we all? I'm just trying to build rapport. Though that's pointless, he can't hear me. It's a pre-recorded video, Skeptic. Never mind.
All right, so a couple caveats before we get started. So first, this list that I'm about to give you is not exhaustive. There's other things I think apologists should avoid.
Like, I don't know, making stuff up? Maybe? Surely that's the first major mistake. I'm going to guess that Cam doesn't say that one of the mistakes is that apologists just make things up, though. He can't out apologists like that.
The ones that I mentioned in this video are just some of the most important.
I'd say that not making things up is pretty important.
And then secondly, this list is born out of my own personal experience. I don't claim to be an expert on doing apologetics the right way. Take this list for what it is. If you find it useful, great. If not, sorry for wasting your time.
That should definitely have been the first mistake. Wasting time. Right? Right? Anybody?
And then lastly, I'm not saying I've mastered everything on this list. I have a lot of work to do in many different areas. And by the way, number 12 is probably the most important in this list, so you definitely want to stick around till the very end of this video.
Smart way to keep folks engaged. I guess you should stick around until the end of this video to see what the end of that video is. I can do it too, Cam.
So number 1, don't think too highly of yourself. In psychology, there's this little thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect.
I guess I can apply that too, though I'm mostly just a floaty circle, so I can't really think about much, right? And I hope I've passed the first peak of the Dunning-Kruger effect and now I'm in the well of feeling less than adequate. But hey, that's what YouTube's for. Mind you, this is supposed to be for apologists, not atheists, or is it? I don't know.
Basically, people often fail at accurately judging their level of competence. Less competent people tend to think that they're smarter than they actually are, and more competent people tend to think they're dumber than they actually are.
Or you can be incompetent and realize just how dumb you are. A la me.
The point here is just simply to exercise intellectual humility. Don't think too highly of yourself or your abilities. Also, it's important to not think too lowly of yourself.
It's important to don't not think too lowly of yourself. That's a double negative. So in other words, think lowly of yourself.
Don't not think too lowly of yourself. Don't not think too lowly of yourself. Don't not think too lowly of yourself. Romans 12:3 says, "Do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment."
Of course there's a Bible verse thrown in there. Maybe mistake 2 should be not using the Bible to prove your claims. Even so, with my literal brain, I'm reading this as, don't not think lowly of yourself, especially when drunk. Yeah, that'll do.
Reading a couple introductory apologetics books doesn't make you an expert in philosophy. It doesn't make you an expert in probability theory, ethics, cosmology, history, or any other sub-discipline.
That's good to know. I won't waste my time reading Apologetics for Dummies then.
And on a related note, exercising intellectual humility can actually help you avoid embarrassment. So not only is this biblically mandated, it's also just very practical. And notice, I'm not saying think less of yourself. I'm saying think accurately of yourself and of other people. So put your pride to the side.
Don't number 2 should be, don't not make a terrible rhyme an awful crime.
Don't shoot from the hip.
Look, I know I've only been in America for a few months, but is this how apologists debate? At high noon? With guns? I thought that was Westerns.
This should have been number 1. I've seen people make all sorts of weird and unsubstantiated claims when responding to objections.
So maybe it shouldn't have been, don't shoot from the hip, and actually my first suggestion of, don't make things up then.
Instead of admitting, you know what, that's a good point. I really need to take that and think about it. Let me get back to you. Instead, most people, a lot of people, will just make up an answer.
I knew it! I knew it!
And I made this mistake actually a lot myself.
I knew it! I knew it!
When I was sort of just starting out in my apologetics career. If you don't know what extra biblical evidence exists for the martyrdom of early Christians, don't just like blurt out that tons of evidence exists. If you don't know something, be ready to admit it.
And maybe don't use a book that makes the claim to demonstrate the claim.
Bluffing not only damages your credibility, it's also dishonest. 2 Timothy 2:15 says, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth.
But how do you know the book is the word of truth? It only says it right here. That doesn't make it so.
I should also note that there's absolutely no good reason to make things up. Uncovering an area of ignorance is actually an opportunity to grow in knowledge. Just think about that and keep that in mind as you're going forward in apologetics. All right, don't number 3. Don't have the last word. All right, this might sound a little weird, but your idol, the thing that you value more than God, might be having the last word in a conversation. If you find yourself with a strong desire to leave the last comment, to say the last thing in a text thread, I suggest doing some serious introspection.
Maybe don't have a discussion about theology on a text thread? We've all been there. I'm terrible for it. Fortunately, there isn't a don'ts list for being an atheist. Or is there? Oh, now I'm doubting everything.
Like, what is driving that desire? Why do you have to have the last word?
It doesn't matter if it's apologetics or an argument with your parents. Getting the last word is a power play. One that I like to relinquish because it seems more powerful to me to just smile and give a sure look.
Leaving the last comment doesn't necessarily mean that you're right.
It's not about being right. It's about being smug.
Ending a conversation is actually like a really uncommon thing to do online. We kind of just want to keep going and going and going and going and going. When atheists or Muslims notice that I've stopped responding to them on Twitter or social media, I sometimes get accused of incompetence or in some cases dishonesty.
I think we can agree here that walking away is sometimes the more powerful move. It all depends on what you're trying to get out of the conversation. With me, my conversations are usually that sounds silly to me because, rather than you're wrong because. It just sounds like I'm asserting wrongness because I'm apparently dripping in British sarcasm. What I'm actually dripping in is tomato sauce because I microwaved some Heinz baked beans for too long.
And the only reason why I mention this is to highlight the fact that we're pressured in all sorts of ways to leave the last word. Okay? I mean, I get it. I don't want to be accused of incompetence or dishonesty either. I want to defend myself on social media. But what I want you to think about is what is behind that desire?
Why should you have to defend yourself? You know your stance. Let others think what they want. You know, like that 16 times 2 is 34.
16 times 2? 34.
Why do we want so badly to leave the last word or leave the last comment? The more that I think about it, the more I'm convinced that our desire to have the last word is actually rooted in personal insecurities. So this takes me to don't number 4. Don't ignore your insecurities. Here's a little theory of mine. Online debating is largely the result of unchecked insecurities. Christians, atheists, agnostics, whatever, we're insecure about our beliefs and our intelligence, and thus we engage our peers in debate so that we can be validated and show others kind of how smart we are.
What word nonsense is that? And I know this is supposed to be about apologists, but he keeps adding in atheists too. I'm not insecure when I hear someone say, it was a God what did done the thing what we can't explain. Insecurity doesn't make me go, what are you talking about? I'm not insecure about not being convinced by a claim. Maybe you're insecure that a floating circle isn't convinced of something you are, or that the human behind said circle is devilishly handsome and British. Just be glad I'm not any taller than 6'2", or else you'd be even more insecure.
These unchecked insecurities can, if we let them, rule over our thoughts and actions. But defending Christianity shouldn't feel like a competition. Before logging on, make a habit of asking yourself the question, why am I going online to debate today?
Because my algorithm needs a boost and I want to buy a new ride-on mower. Oh, hang on, not me specifically. Never mind.
And if you can't think of a good reason or a good answer to this question, it's probably time to reassess your motivations. Number 5, don't debate more than you read. So as a general rule, I think we should be not debating. We should be reading twice as much as we're debating. For every hour you spend online debating, you should spend at least 2 hours reading.
Reading what, though? Please don't say the Bible. Please don't say the Bible.
Spend the majority of your time with credible experts. Learn how respected scholars express and defend their views.
Read what other folks say about the Bible? Who cares? If anything, cut out the middleman. Not that I think reading the Bible will get us anywhere. Someone else reading a book that hasn't actually been demonstrated to be the word of a god doesn't make it any more demonstrated to be the word of a god.
So here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that you should never debate. But what I am saying is that you should keep the main thing the main thing. I can only imagine where I'd be if instead of debating online for countless hours, I used that time wisely and was reading instead, reading good philosophy. Here's a question to ask yourself before each comment that you post. Should I continue doing this, or should I read that book I bought literally 2 days ago?
Hang on. Does he know that I bought Sex for Dummies 2 days ago? How? Either way, yeah, I'd rather read that.
Because let's be honest, if you're an apologist, you're in this space, you probably have a book you bought within the last few days, and it's just been sitting on your shelf. You may not have even taken it out of the package yet.
Oh. I wonder what book he has sitting on a shelf in a package. Place your bets below.
Don't try to master every subject. All right, so if you try to master every single subject in apologetics all at once, you're not going to master anything.
Surely there's only one subject that actually matters, though. The existence of Floaty Sky Man. Everything else after that can be filtered down, right? Which invisible bearded fellow is the right one first? Then did it send itself to sacrifice itself to appease itself, or whatever that phrase is? I don't care if you have quote-unquote proof of Jesus' lunchbox or that Muhammad used a toothpick once. Demonstrate the being that governs it all. The rest is pointless, in my opinion.
You're just not. So find the thing that most interests you and master that. And by master, I don't mean watch a couple online debates. I mean, consume literally everything you can about that particular subject.
I think it would be wise to take your own advice here, Cameron, because if you had consumed everything you possibly could have, you'd have at least demonstrated a God was real. It sounds as if you shouldn't listen to Cam.
So for me, it's the argument from contingency. I've read all the latest and best material on the contingency argument that I can find. And by that, I basically mean that I've just been memorizing the work of Josh Rasmussen. But so I picked that subject, the argument from contingency, for one simple reason. It's just what I'm naturally drawn to.
The argument from contingency goes as follows. 1. Every contingent thing has an explanation of its existence. Fine. 2. If the universe has an explanation of its existence, that explanation is a transcendent personal being. No! Unless, of course, it's Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe, in which case I might accept it. How the monkey fudging bananas can you jump from everything has an explanation for why it's here to God did it, God did it?
Number 7, don't be a jerk. 1 Peter 3:15 says to always be ready to give a defense, but to do so in gentleness and respect.
Luckily, I don't give a hoot what the book says, so I can be as much of a jerk as I want. So here goes. Hey, Cam, your hair is... well, it's actually pretty cool. Darn it.
We all know this verse. At least if you're in apologetics, you know this verse. But do we actually live up to it? That's the real question. And if you're into apologetics, you're probably a pretty competitive person. You like to win. People win in different ways. For some people, the way that they win isn't by offering arguments, it's by making fun of people.
Are you seriously saying that wine turns into blood? Mock them, ridicule them.
For others, the way that they win is by psychoanalyzing why the other person believes what they believe.
Every Christian is needy.
The way that I used to win on Twitter was by using snark. Now, I'm not saying that you should never mock or psychoanalyze or use snark.
So you should be a jerk. You just cancelled out this whole mistake, Cameron.
Don't forget how to have a normal conversation. This is...
Don't forget how to make your mouth hole work, Cam.
This one is so important. I mean, don't turn every conversation into a debate. You don't need to do that. My wife knows when I go into apologetics mode during a conversation, I'm very thankful that she'll regularly call me out on it. A big giveaway is when I ask her to define some basic term. Well, honey, what do you mean by money? It's like... When I start to do that kind of stuff, she knows. So don't assume that every little conversation that you have needs a heavy dose of apologetics. Most conversations don't need a heavy dose of apologetics, including conversations about apologetics.
And maybe with conversations about what you're having for dinner with your wife. It sounds like a really fun relationship if you go into apologetics mode when deciding who gets to warm the toilet seat.
Don't abuse apologetics. I remember when I first started learning about philosophy, it was like I had been living my entire life with blinders on. Like I had some idea of how arguments worked and how to talk to people, but when I learned the different rules of inference, how to construct a valid argument, I could suddenly spot mistakes in other people's thinking, and it was almost like I gained a superpower.
A superpower that doesn't work on yourself, huh? Can spot flaws in other people's thinking, however, not oneself. And I'm not saying my thinking isn't flawed. I just try not to make assertions that can't be demonstrated. Give me a decent superpower like flight. No. Invisibility. No. Super strength. No. Make me Spider-Man.
Like this is kind of why when you learn the names of various logical fallacies, all you kind of want to do is accuse others of committing them. Oh, and then by the way, some of us actually never grow out of this phase.
What was that about being a jerk, Cameron?
Don't be a jerk. Don't be a jerk. Don't be a jerk. But here's the point. Apologetics can be abused. Instead of really listening to what someone is trying to argue, it can be tempting to say the names of a couple of fallacies and then claim victory.
I'll be honest, remembering the names of the fallacies isn't my strong suit. But you don't need to remember them to say the idea's dumb. And also, that's what you lovely folks are for.
And in my view, this is actually a way of avoiding truth, or at least it can be. So here's another way of putting this. Apologetics can be used as a smokescreen for avoiding serious challenges that aren't wrapped in a neat, logically valid package.
I'm sorry, what? I need to listen to that again.
Apologetics can be used as a smokescreen for avoiding serious challenges that aren't wrapped in a neat, logically valid package.
I'm hearing from an apologist that apologetics is what's used when logic can't be applied. Maybe it's just because that's what I want to hear.
Don't exploit technicalities just so you can avoid dealing with good objections. If you're using apologetics in this way, you're not really seeking the truth, you're seeking affirmation or something else.
So don't use apologetics in place of logic. I'm rolling with that.
Don't neglect accountability. There's two ways in which apologists ought to be accountable. First, you need to be intellectually accountable, and then second, you need to be morally accountable. Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. The body of Christ is a beautiful thing. It really is.
The body of what now? How did he get involved in all this?
Surround yourself with other Christians that are smarter and more knowledgeable than you. Submit your ideas to them. Listen to their feedback. Not only is it going to open your mind to new ideas, it's really going to help make you or keep you humble.
Being smarter doesn't make the evidence any more believable. So, not sure how that helps. Maybe don't hang around with smart people who can't demonstrate that there's a God any more than you can.
Don't neglect spiritual disciplines.
What?
As apologists, it's really easy to get so wrapped up in intellectual arguments that we really forget what this is all about. It's about Jesus. Christianity is it's not just an intellectual assent to a set of propositions. It's a commitment to the person of Jesus.
And he was doing so well. Not really, but whatever. Don't be an apologist without an imaginary friend. Gotcha. Summed up in one sentence.
Don't forget about your mental health. I said this one was the most important, and it might actually be. Apologetics can be very, very stressful.
Oh, now I feel like a jerk, because actually, that one is important.
It doesn't matter how well you think you handle stress, it can take a serious toll. Regularly engaging in apologetics can be anxiety-inducing and can even cause depression.
And the same for not accepting claims. But this isn't meant to be a heavy video. I like them to be easy to watch. So, look at his hair. It's so, darn it still looks good. Seriously though, look after your mental health. So from all this, I compiled a new list of don'ts for apologists, which I feel like he basically said, and somehow I got 16 from Cam's 12, what maybe 17 if we use that last one, but you know. They are, don't not think lowly of yourself, don't make things up, don't use the book that makes the claim to demonstrate the claim, don't have text conversations when trying to prove God, don't be insecure about 6'2" handsome British circles, don't read what other people have read about what folks have read in the Bible, don't waste your time, don't listen to Cameron What's-His-Face from Capturing Christianity, don't use the argument from contingency ever. Don't be a jerk unless you want to be a jerk, in which case, be a jerk. Don't forget how to speak. Don't use your superpowers on yourself. Don't learn something and then use it to help your case. Don't use apologetics when you could use logic. And if you don't want to use logic, then use apologetics. Don't hang around with folks you claim are smarter but still can't offer any better evidence of a deity than you can. Don't do any of this without an imaginary friend.
Oh, and there's actually one more don't that I haven't mentioned yet. That is, don't forget that Christianity is true.
Oh, off. Prove it. I think my list works better. But what do you think? Would you change any of these don'ts? Would you remove some? How about adding some don'ts in the section below, along with your superpower of choice? I'm going to skeptic this list off and send it to Cameron. A big thank you to this month's ticks on Patreon. MISM, Addy Rockart, the Enixes, and the absolute lunatic Jimmy, as well as all the base ticks. You can become a supporter on Patreon too at patreon.com/theskeptic. The link is in the description, along with links to all my other socials. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. From me, the Skeptic, stay safe, keep thinking logically, and ask questions. Skepticism is the first step towards truth. See you next Saturday.